Hi, welcome to a new series called the Edison Fast 4. I'm Steve Wren, the Business Director of the Edison Agency, and in this series, we're looking back on some of our favourite brand projects to have a chat about what impact the work has had to date on them, and also just to find out about the category and speak to some of the experts in their field to learn what's happening in the world of marketing, what's happening in the world of brand, and to really just share the love. Today, I'm joined by Randall Cooper. He's the CEO and founder of Premax Performance Skincare. Randall is an internationally renowned sports physiotherapist. He's the co-author of the world's best-selling sports medicine book called Clinical Sports Medicine. And he's also worked with the likes of the Hawthorn Football Club and the Australian Winter Olympics team, managing athletes across their injury management and prevention. And it's fantastic, Randall, to have you come and join me for today. So thanks for being here.
Thanks very much, Steve. It's great to be part of this, and I'm glad you reached out to have a chat because it's been a few years now since we did our work together, and sometimes it's nice to actually kind of reflect on what that work has done. So I'm happy to kind of chat about that process and also what it's brought for us also.
Well, you beat me to it. I was going to say it's been 7 years. And really, as part of the Edison Fast 4, we're basically asking 4 kind of key questions along the journey to say, what's the backstory of the process, as you say, especially when it's a good one, and also learn it where have we got to now within Premax. So if I jump straight into it, we'll start off with question number 1, which is all about why the need for a rebrand. And if I can take your direction, sorry, to screen here on the left-hand side is a bit of a trip down memory lane. You'll see the white tube there as a bit of a demonstration. 7 years ago, you came to to us with essentially this kind of brand that was already established and doing really well. So if I could hear from you as to what was the context and the catalyst for change from here?
Well, the business back started as a side hustle, really. I never really started Premax to make a lot of money or to build a big brand. I was a sports physiotherapist. I was really enjoying my work with some of the teams that you mentioned in the intro there. And I thought, well, do I really want to start my own practice? And the answer was no to that because I was enjoying working in performance sport. But I did have this little entrepreneurial itch, and I thought that there was a gap in the market for sports creams and sports rubs, because I would just get complaints all the time from athletes and patients just saying, this stuff's greasy. I've got to shower before I go and hit the training park or get my business suit back on after a treatment. So we started off with a few massage creams. They quickly kind of developed into being the leading massage cream brand in Australia in the sports medical channel. And then we got approached by athletes and active people saying, hey, look, we like getting treated with your massage creams, but why don't you do something for us? And we did. So you can see that if people are watching the screen there, is that we started off with a very white clinical, I don't like the word using amateurish, but it's I think the words that Amber and the team used were childish, kind
I'm
of
trying to be
color
gentle.
schemes, etc. And we thought that if we truly want to service that consumer / athlete market, we had to do 2 things. The first was that I needed to take the business seriously. So until that point, it was just a side hustle. But at that point, I was also courting with investors, and I got a little bit of money into the business. The second thing is as part of that investment team that came in, they said, listen, we know the products are good. You've done a terrific job getting the brand to where it is at the moment. But if you're telling us that these are the best products in the market, it doesn't look like it. It looks childish, amateur for a better word. So it was the catalyst for us to kind of then look around and say, all right, we need someone to kind of help us to help fulfill the visual identity of this brand and make it a brand that consumers and particularly active people would like to associate themselves with. And Edison jumped in at that point, and we had a great process. And as you can see at the image on the right there, the result was awesome.
Well, I think one of the key things that I remember from this was really talking about reflecting the aspirations and the lifestyle and kind of the importance of the kind of the lifestyle factor of those athletes and what they were actually putting onto their bodies. So to your point about whether it was a bit naive or a bit sort of clinical in terms of its previous approach, the level of investment that these athletes are putting into their training, to how important this kind of experience is to them, needed to also be reflected by the product itself and what's in their bag, so to speak, how they're representing themselves to their community and to the industry, which was one of the key catalysts for starting to think through this new elevated identity for what Premax could be. One of the other things that I remember kind of quite fondly was the discussion with you around the founder story, and saying how much do we need to elevate, or how should we really sort of reflect where that credibility comes from for the product design. It's not something that's just been sort of manufactured at a mass market level from a pharmaceutical kind of giant. There is that credibility behind the Randall Cooper, your experience, and really trying to look at different ways that we could elevate that into not only the brand itself, but use that as the driving, I guess, sort of backstory behind why this exists in order to land that credibility.
Yeah, well, I think that that was probably the most surprising thing of the process for me, was that as part of the process, as I'm sure a lot of your people who are listening will understand, is that you guys got a focus group in, and we had some athletes, and they were all of all ages. They weren't elite athletes who were competing at the international level. They were people who just enjoyed swimming 3 times a week. But I think the universal feedback, I wasn't in the session, you guys were, but
you're never allowed to.
Came back, the feedback that came through was that Randall should put his name on this, because they're kind of, we think about this as his creams, and that backstory is so important. And I think that resonated with you guys, is to actually bring some of that founder story to the front of pack, and to help differentiate itself from, we don't have a lot of competitors, to be honest, but just to differentiate the category, for a better word. I have to be honest, and I was uncomfortable with that. I mean, I feel like I'm a quietly confident kind of person, but I don't really like having my name in lights. I just like kind of expressing myself and just doing good work. But putting my name in silver foil on the front of the bottle was something I had to wrestle with. And seemingly the feedback was pretty universal from the people who were in that session. I thought, well, sometimes you just got to go with the crowd. So I caved, and my name's still on the front.
And we've moved from the name from the front to heroic photos like this, where you're absolutely in the limelight. So it's a nice
bit of Photoshop there, bit of Photoshop there.
So question 3 is really, what opportunities has presented themselves thus far? So we know, as we're stepping through, there was the brand experience, as you touched on, about representing the quality nature of the product and sort of speaking to that aspirational audience to give them a product that not only represented the best on the market, but also how they approach their brand. What else has happened since we sort of pivoted towards this new look?
I think the main thing that the rebranding did for us was that it just gave us greater confidence as a brand. I mean, we just had so much more confidence in our messaging that, like, we've got the best products on the market. They work the best. They've had the most consideration. They're a premium. We use premium ingredients, so it's all round. It's a high-end product, but as we discussed, that didn't look like it. But once the rebrand was done, it did. So it kind of gave us better justification and better confidence for, like, our price point, for instance. We had much more confidence in approaching wholesalers, new wholesalers, both domestically and internationally as well. And also, the bigger retailers, for instance. I'll give you an example of one of the wholesalers that we've got over in the UK for our products into the sports market. They took our products just before we did the rebrand, and the comments at that time were, we know this is good. It works. You're supplying some of the best cycling teams in the world with your product, but as far as how it sits on the shelf in a bike shop or a sports store or something, we've still got a few reservations. But we'll take it because we like you, Randall, and because the products are good. I didn't tell them about the rebrand. And then it was about 6 or 12 months that we kind of were working with them. And I said, hey, by the way, we're rebranding. We've taken your advice, and the look on their face when I showed it, and it wasn't a unique look. We saw it kind of everywhere from existing customers and suppliers, was, wow, this makes sense now. This is what it should be. You could just see that there was the delight there, that the visual identity of the brand matched the performance of the brand, and that was just a really kind of nice feeling. The other thing that we noticed was that it just opened up a lot more doors when it came to media, getting media attention, for them to kind of, have images taken of our products, to kind of get it in magazines and in newspapers, etc. Is just so much easier to kind of open up those doors. And this was during the rise, particularly of Instagram, sharing, influencers, whatnot, and it just lent itself so beautifully to people spruiking the product on social media. And it showed up really nicely, kind of like on e-com websites that were selling it as well. So all in all, like, that visual identity opened a lot of doors for us and reinforced us with our existing customers.
And for, I guess, from 7 years to today, that sort of customer base has expanded quite broadly. I think you were largely Australia based at the time, with perhaps a little bit of an inroads kind of internationally, whereas now, am I right in saying it's about 6 to 7 different international markets?
Yeah, I think we're about there now. We're, New Zealand, 3 or 4 countries in Asia, UK, and we're just about to go into the US as well later this year. So yeah, it's keeping up as a smallish kind of brand. Like, those international markets are definitely kind of keeping us busy. It's been a good progression internationally.
Yeah, great. Um, from a customer base, you've mentioned the retailer side of things. What about from the athletes themselves and the users? What was the sort of the feedback that came through from, I guess, both the before and after, but at the same time, just how comfortable they were with picking up the new look Premax?
Well, I think that when we started, we did have some of these athlete products in the range, but we only had a few. We had a few kind of in development that we wanted to launch in tandem kind of with the new branding. But at that point, we are probably about an 85% massage cream brand and a 15% kind of consumer slash, athlete brand. These days, it hasn't quite flipped around the other way, but it's much better than 50-50. So we're more of a consumer brand than a wholesale brand, and that was the aim of the game. That, I think, one of the things that we worked together with Steve was to, and this was some of the healthier debate that we kind of had as part of the process, is that where did we want the visual identity for this brand to kind of sit? Was it more so with premium skincare kind of products that you'd find in a Sephora or a Mecca, or did we really want to more so align ourselves with, like, sports apparel brands like Lululemon or Nike or Two-Time Gear, for instance? And the direction that we went was, we wanted to make it a little bit more sporty, and that it would sit alongside a sports bag and sit in like in gym bag, rather than it being kind of pretty on the shelf next to go-to skincare in Mecca. So I think we made the right call on that, because it's made the identity as very sports centric, and that's reflected. Now we're 7 years down the track. That's definitely been reflected in where our product have done best as well. We have had conversations in pharmacy. We have had conversations kind of like in beauty. But by far, where we have succeeded the most is in sports stores, aquatic centres, run shops, cycling shops. It just moves. And with that visual identity and being premium, what we've also noticed is that those retailers have been very, very happy to put the products in prominent positions. Whereas back in the day, before we had the white stuff, like, it'd go in the back and people would say, yeah, we've got a good cream, it's up the back there. They wouldn't really highlight it.
Yeah,
Now, Premax is on the front counter. It's in a beautiful kind of, Perspex point of sale to stand, like, the branding kind of stands out. It's a feature of a lot of sports stores now, and we're really proud of that.
that's brilliant. It's fantastic. What's the if I take you through to question 4 now, which is really about having achieved this sort of level of success over the past, well, not just 7 years, even prior, but with having that new position in market at the moment, what is happening, I guess, more broadly? Where to next for Premax? And what are you seeing actually happening within the category of sports skincare that's either getting you excited, getting you nervous? what's the industry doing?
Yeah, in some ways, like it's not all kind of chocolates and roses. It's easy. It's easy to kind of say, yeah, be successful, and it has been a lot of hard work. And one of the reasons it's kind of been hard work to get where we are is that there's not a lot of other brands. We're not really there's not sports skincare still is not a rising tide that's floating all the boats. It's something where we've really had to kind of push this category and kind of do it as a lone wolf. Um, there are some brands over in the States that have started to kind of get on board. There's brands like Art of Sport and Zone In and Try Swim. So these niche brands, a little bit more kind of centered around personal care, which is a bit different to what we do. But I suppose that it's encouraging to kind of see that skincare for sport is starting to become a category, and that we're just not kind of banging the drum ourselves. The thing is I think that it's one of the things we've also learned is that education is really key. So being involved in high level sport for a lot of years, like the high level athletes, because they do so much sport, they kind of really start to learn by trial and error quite quickly how important their skin is. Otherwise, they get horrible chafing or sunburn or whatever it might be. But the amateur athletes, they just take a lot more kind of exposures to kind of get to that realization that they need these products. So for us, we need to kind of get ahead of that curve and educate that market. And like that's why we kind of on our social media, etc., we have to kind of do a lot of educational style kind of content rather than it just being the new cool kind of face cream that's on the market.
I suppose,
to kind of get
the
that
difference
uptake,
between the entry level sunscreen type thing where you say, okay, it's a no brainer, the education's been done, you need it, and you need it if it's sort of chlorine safe, versus taking that next step towards the anti-chafe and a specific kind of functional benefit layer for the sort of the casual athlete or the everyday athlete, depending on how you determine them. I can imagine, that education kind of lens is get them into the ecosystem ideally, and then obviously, and then use that educational tool to kind of further grow the knowledge bank.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example because like when we did our work together, we were very much that first kind of sport that we went across into was cycling. We did some sunscreen and we did what's called a chamois cream, which helps prevent saddle sores for the cyclists. And we've been doing well in that market, and it's good. But sport is like fashion in a lot of ways, where things become fashionable very fast. And during COVID, running has just boomed. And there's so many run clubs out there, and not only in Australia but all around the world. And we've got some products that kind of help this market and help these people who are running, particularly with chafing. So a lot of these people who have started running over COVID and the boom have got no idea. So that's why we've had to go out and not only do stuff online, but we've had to kind of go out to run clubs and marathon events and whatever. And that's been a great thing for the visual identity of the brand as well, because when we do rock up at an expo or a marathon or whatever, the branding is just so clear and distinctive that's definitely kind of helped us penetrate into that running market, for instance. But in 2 years' time, it might be something else that's cool, and we'll probably have to chase that.
A thought came to mind about nice bit of content for the anti-chafe cream during the run clubs, for the reason that other people join those run clubs. There could be a nice synergy there between don't ruin your date night.
We'll leave that one to you, Steve.
Well, thank you, Randall. Really appreciate the insights. I suppose one last sort of thought to ask, or question to ask of you, is as you've moved from sort of physio to founder to CEO, has your perspective on brand and business changed substantially? Obviously, there's the rebrand process about kind of just the visual identity, but what's been that kind of broad learning curve for you as you've moved across roles and now sitting with not just Premax being your primary kind of hustle? You're a very busy man across kind of that expert knowledge bank of physiotherapy and sports physio in general. But what's your kind of one takeout for other people that are going from that sort of founder to elevated status that they might take away?
Yeah, it has been a big journey for me because I remember, and I do tell this story reasonably often, is that I used to be fairly high and mighty as a physio. I used to treat business people and I'd let them go after helping them with their back or their hamstring or whatever, and think, yeah, you guys just must, like, I don't know how you enjoy your day at work because, like, all you do is just worry about money. Like, how boring. I'm helping people. Um,
Yeah.
but with the journey of Premax is that what I've learned is that brand matters, and brand can make a difference to people. And brands have values and they have commitments to their customers that they need to uphold. And I've really felt that Premax has lived up to what I want it to be. And to give you an example of how Premax has kind of, and my own thinking, I should say, has changed, is that one of the penny drop moments was during COVID. And as you might remember, we're in Melbourne, so the whole state got locked down for 2 years basically. And we got an email from a lady who was a very keen swimmer, and she used to swim at a pool, and the pool was closed for 6 months. So the only way that she could swim was to swim in the bay. But the bay and her wetsuit and the salt water used to give her horrendous chafing, so much so that she didn't do it. But she said, I saw your brand. What you said looked, really appealing to me. You promised me that it kind of wouldn't, it would help prevent my chafing in the wetsuit, and it did. And I've never experienced a product like it. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart because you allowed me to swim in the bay during COVID and keep me sane. And for that, it's like, that's fairly grandiose. I'm sure
It
that's
is.
the only thing that kind of had her out in the bay every day. But we helped her on a journey with that. And as a physio, like, I've always thought about helping people. And I suppose now, when you get the right brand and it does good stuff, then brands can help people and have their own identity as well. So, yeah, I've completely 180'd my view on that, and I think that I've become a student of business and a student of branding, and I'm thankful for the journey. It's given me a new perspective on my professional life. It's been awesome.
That's fantastic, and it's credit to you. It's all grounded on not only your, the founder story, the backstory behind physio, and also how you've taken that on to elevate yourself in that space and